if you have a small or medium-sized business, you're not going to go to the Cisco's of the world, things like that. You're not going to those people because those are totally not feasible for you.
Typically, when I meet people for the first time and they get to know about me and what I do, one of the questions that will come up is, wow, you know technology really well, right? I go, well, I know technology pretty well to an extent, enough for my family, my business, my clients to get by and what we use it for. But I definitely would not consider myself a technology expert. But the gal that we have on the podcast today, Trina Martin, I would consider a technology expert. And her day-to-day life revolves around helping businesses connect with their clients as well as their employees abroad using technology and all these different softwares that are out there and available to you. And she helps you do that. And that's something I do not do. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy the podcast today. So stay tuned in just a few moments for the next episode of the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. I'm here with another new friend, Trina out of beautiful Texas. Trina, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Mitchell. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm doing some research on you before we started this podcast. I'm super stoked for you to share your knowledge and expertise with the listeners today. So before we just kind of dive in, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell the audience what you do, what the day-to-day life of Trina looks like, and then we'll dive in after that.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, Trina is a very busy woman. I am the CEO and founder of 𝗧𝗿𝗁 Technology Consulting, where I help small and medium-sized businesses use secure communication technologies in their business operations so that they can stay connected to their distant clients, customers, and employees. I'm also an international speaker. I'm an author. I am a mother of 2 teenagers, so that is probably the most exciting thing I have going on in my life right now. I spent over 2 decades in the tech industry as a computer programmer, doing digital forensics. I am a recently retired U.S. naval officer. I was in the Navy for 30 years. I was an intelligence officer. So the secure communication technology kind of played off all of those things that I've done. And I'm just here loving life.
Man, well, first, before we even dive in, thank you for your service. Holy smokes, that's awesome. And just so thankful for what you've done for our country. So thank you. And then 2 kiddos, 2 teenagers nonetheless. So that's, I only got a 2-year-old or almost a 2-year-old. So that's, I haven't experienced the teenage days yet, but I'm assuming your kids, you keep them in tip-top shape, I'm assuming, with that military background. So they're probably pretty good kids, I would assume, right?
They're very good, but then their days, they're still teenagers. They're both high schoolers. So some days I think they like me and some days I don't think they do. So.
Well, as we dive into your background, this technology background, you talk about secure ways to talk to clients. We talking texting, email, automated phone messages. What's that thing that you're specifically helping your clients with?
All of that. Talking about secure video, texting, messaging, calling, sending files, all of those things that most people don't think about. And because of the pandemic, people who normally don't use technology or hadn't used technology in ways like that were forced to use it. And as we know, it was a struggle for a lot of people, like how we're speaking today. A lot of people hadn't known about all the different mediums there were to communicate video-wise, but not only just communicate, but to do it securely. So I focus on the secure aspect because, as we've seen the news, ransomware, hackers, all these things are prevalent. And I always say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you are, affected by a hacker. And for the small and medium-sized business, that's something that they can afford. Well, really, no company can afford it. But if you're somebody like the Googles who has a big IT infrastructure and department, you're not so much worried about that because you're pretty much Fort Knox. So you have it pretty down, and you have a team of people. But if you're a party of, a business of one or maybe even 50, you don't have those things in place. If you're saying, oh, you know what, Johnny from across the street comes and, fixes my computer, then you probably need to come and see me because those you're the type of person I'm looking for. But if you have employees that are remote or just working out in the field and you want to communicate with them, you don't want to send sensitive information via email. And I know people are guilty of doing that. They're like, oh, here's the password, or, oh, send me your social security number. And they don't think twice about putting it in email. Well, that's something that you shouldn't do because that's how people get hacked and they grab your information and they're able to get into your system. And then next thing you know, you're down, as far as a business, and that can either ruin your business or make you lose clients. And neither one of those are good for you if you're in a business.
Man, I have to say, I'm guilty of sending. I'll be like, oh, I'll just send it over, like you said, email or something. I'm obviously very careful of the social security number more than anything. But my mom will like this episode a lot when she listens to it because she, just from early on as we were kids, I remember wanting to order something online when that was starting to become a thing. So I'm a 90s kid. And so I was like, hey, can I use your credit card? She's like, I am not putting my credit card online. Like, no way. Yeah. And so what I had to do as a teenager, if I wanted to ever buy anything online, before I obviously could get my own, I went to Walmart and I'd buy one of those Visa cards for $100 and paid the extra little amount. And then I could use that little credit card for a $100 gift card on Amazon or wherever it was online, because she just would not put her credit card information online. And so she's since lighten up a little bit where she'll put stuff online and order because of just the world we live in. But I do know when there's those hacks like Target had years ago where everybody, like millions of people lost their information, she was like, I told you guys, I told you. And so, yeah, she saw it coming. But what's, man, we could really dive into this a lot. So I'm trying to think what's the first one I want to touch on. So as a small business owner, are there certain softwares and programs that you're like, yeah, those are always safe, those are good to use, and other ones you're like, I would really avoid that, or you always need to have spamware on your computer? I mean, let's kind of pick apart that one a little bit, what you would suggest to a business owner.
Well, there are like my top 4 things that I always like to recommend to business owners, and it's not per se a certain brand or manufacturer, but there's like 4 things, so I have them written down. So the first thing is like messaging. If you want to talk to someone securely, like I said, you have employees out in the field on the go and you need to send them some information that they need quickly. You don't want to send it via email. You may not have time to call, so secure messaging is something you should have. And I always recommend Signal to people. Signal is a free app. It's end-to-end encrypted, which means that me sending you something while it's traveling is going to be encrypted. So no one can come in that middle and grab it and know what we're talking about. So it's secure on my end, it's secure on your end. And that's the way that you should communicate. If you're texting or something like that, always use secure messaging. My next thing that I like to tell my business owners is digital signatures. Now, if you're dealing in contracts, things like that, or things of the essence that you need signed in a timely manner, there's no more of, let me mail it to you, or let me FedEx it to you, or even fax. Like, who has time for that? So digital signatures are great. And it's funny because I have been using digital signatures probably for almost 20 years because the military started using them years ago. And when I say digital signature, that means that when you have a contract that needs to be signed, and I think you did that, Mitchell, as well with your release that I signed, you send it out and the person you're sending it to is able to basically sign from their computer, put a date, time step on it. And what most people don't know, this is legally binding. But it saves you time from trying to mail something out, FedEx it, what have you. You get it, a quick response, is legally binding, you have that record. There's digital signatures, there's e-signatures. So like in the military, we had a card with, we called it a CAT card, but it has that little chip like what your credit card has. and it had all of our information on it. So we would actually have to have a special reader that we would put it in, and it would show, okay, here's my name, here's the date and time. So it would automatically stamp it like that. So there was no refuting it. Well, for the common public, it's digital signature because you don't have that. You have things like the DocuSign, Adobe Sign, things like that, where you can kind of have them like make text into cursive and put your name down and have a date that you type in. So that's the same. It's just as secure as what the military uses. So that's one thing. The next thing is a VPN. And I know many people have heard about that, but VPN is virtual private network. And what that is, it masks your address. So think of it something like, so if you had mail coming to your mailbox, so that someone wouldn't go and grab your mail, let's say instead of sending it to your house, maybe you routed it to a P.O. box, but you still were able to get it. So that's essentially what the VPN does. It encrypts your traffic and your address from your computer to where you're going. And I say whether you're a business owner or you're just at home, everyone should have a VPN on their computer, because not only will it mask where you're coming from, it makes it where people can't track you. It's just so secure. And that way, because we all have addresses on our computer, and I'm not going to get too geeky here. We all have addresses on our computer of where we're located. And if the smart people and know how to do this, they can hone right in on that address and say, okay, she's here. This is her computer. She's in this city, this state, whatever. And we know the kind of computer she used. Well, a VPN masks that. So even myself, when I'm at home, I have a VPN on my computer. So whether I'm checking email or just browsing the internet, I always use a VPN. So that's something I always suggest. And then the last thing is a password manager. Nowadays, with everything requiring passwords, because we're trying to stay secure, right? You want to have a way to put these things in place. And having an encrypted password manager is something that's very important. And you see the theme here. Everything I'm saying is encrypted, and because that's what scrambles it so that it's not out in plain text so that people can't read it. And there's several out there. I personally like 1Password, but what's really fascinating about these is you can put everything that you have, any, credit cards, bank information, logins for websites. You can keep them in this password manager, create passwords, and you don't have to think of them, because now everything you're like, oh my God, I got a password for this, I got a password for that. How do I remember 50 different passwords? There's no way you can do that. But if you had a password manager, you could have everything categorized in this and have a password, a different one for each one of them, if that's what you wanted. And it's all there, it's encrypted, no one can get to it but you. And that's something that I also suggest, whether you're a business owner or not, is something that will help keep you safe.
So what I've been doing is taking those passwords and I've been making them as my Facebook posts, so I have them always on my Facebook wall, just so I know they're always there. Is that not a good idea?
Not
You're
a
saying
good
to keep
idea.
those? Oh man, I need to go delete those before somebody finds those passwords.
Not a good idea.
No, you're right. I use LastPass for the password protection, and then the it's funny when you're talking about the mail. That was a really good analogy for having like a PO box, and it's so different. So my wife and I, we live in South Florida, and just regular mailboxes on a street, like boom, anybody could just go take the mail if they wanted to. But then, visiting family in Alaska, they have, and where I grew up, the mailboxes are for almost everybody are in little areas, and each little neighborhood has a whole box where you just kind of go up to a mini PO box, I guess you could say, and everybody has a key, so you can't go get nobody could steal your mail. And it's so interesting when you said that, I immediately was thinking about, oh yeah, people could steal my mail in Florida if they really wanted to, and I'm sure that does happen from time to time for places, which is scary. I just feel like you can't be safe anywhere anymore. And I'm assuming you're very familiar with Duckduckgo, or maybe you've heard of the So like I'll use Duckduckgo too when I get freaked out, but I also still like Google more than that. And for those that listening, Duckduckgo is just, you probably explain it way better than me, Trina, but just something where you're not getting tracked with your activity online with what you're searching for and doing. Because of course, from the marketing standpoint, everybody always say when you're on Google, everything you're doing is getting tracked, and they use that to sell to people to show you good ads. So you looked at that pair of shoes on Amazon, man, they're going to show you that pair of shoes across everywhere you're searching online. And that's
Yeah.
the joy of you're using a free, quote unquote, free search engine, but it does come with a cost of your data that you're using across the internet, I guess. So those are all four really good points. So I guess if a business is, we're going to jump around here a little bit, but if somebody's like, okay, I don't want to handle this all on my own. So does Trina come in and you kind of give them all the tools, the coaching? How does your business kind of help a small business deal with all this?
Well, I'm the strategy. So what I will do, I will come in and I will assess your business, see where your gaps are, tell you what you need, and then recommend a provider for you that I will work hand in hand with, kind of like as the project manager, to make sure everything that you need, you get. And then once that is done, I will come in and train you and your staff. Now, my big thing is, and this is one of the things when I was in IT that I would really hate, was I hate when people come into companies and they sell you things that, for one, is more than what you need, costs more, and it doesn't integrate with your business. So here's an example. I work for some, and I won't say any names, some big major corporations. And we would hire other big major corporations for tools and spend millions, tens of millions of dollars on a new software package. Well, once that corporation would leave, I would be the person who would reprogram their package to work with our internal systems because it didn't do what we needed to do. So you're thinking about, okay, I paid this company millions of dollars, but yet I have my in-house programmer who's actually making it work the way that we need it to integrate. So that's where I want to help that small and medium-sized business owner to make sure they have things that will integrate with what they currently have, and they're not getting things that they really don't need. So my thing is, if you just need a platform where you're like, okay, you know what? I want to be in the cloud. I want to make sure that I have disaster recovery. I know where my files are. If something tragic happens, that's what I'm going to give you. I'm not going to say, well, you know what? I'm going to give you that. Plus, you need this nice new Cadillac over here. And, let me sell that to you. So that's where I differ from some of the big providers. And again, if you have a small or medium-sized business, you're not going to go to the Cisco's of the world, things like that. You're not going to those people because those are totally not feasible for you. Whereas a Google or Amazon, they're going to go to the big boys. They're going to go to SAP and all of these bigger solutions. So that's what I do. So I am the strategy behind to make sure you're getting what you need to get and explaining that to you.
Will you also then, if somebody comes to you and they're torn between Mac and PC, will you coach them on one of those over another? Because I do know, PC will still usually be better for some of the technology. I know when I've met IT people, usually IT people are all want to be PC because they just say Mac's not there yet. I'd love to hear your take on the Mac PC dilemma, and what would you coach business owners on?
I can coach you on that. Me personally, I am a Mac person. For many years, I was that PC person because I was a programmer. So being a programmer and having to code and having to run compilers and things like that, you have to have a PC to do. But in today's world, we have things like virtual machines that can run on Macs that I can run Windows on and still do those things. So it's just a matter of preference. I personally, like I said, I like Apple because, one, it works. I don't get the blue screen of death. For 2 decades, I was working on PCs, and it's so frustrating to me. I don't like PCs. I don't like Microsoft, but that's my personal preference.
And I'm with you on that one. I love my Mac. Everything I have is Apple products, and I just think they work really well. And I had a PC at one point when I was a teenager, and I bought an HP, and I was all excited. And now, granted, I know the Macs will have their issues too, but this specific one I bought later in a month or two needed a motherboard. It needed a new hard drive. It just like within a few months of owning it. So I bought it from Best Buy. They gave me the money back, and I used it to buy Had to add a lot more money to it to buy the MacBook Pro, and I had that thing for over a decade. Started my business with it, and it just lasted. It cost $2,500 for the 17-year-old kid, or 16 when I bought it, but it lasted for me over a decade of working, and didn't have antivirus on it, which I don't know if you know enough about that part of it. I've always heard that Apple, they say you don't need the virus protection compared to a PC. Do you know? Can you talk a little bit about that at all from your side?
They say that, but I have a virus protection on my computer that I use because it's just good to have. You never know, and criminals are getting more stealthier nowadays. They're smarter. You have kids and that are that's their job, just to see what they can break into. So it's always good to have those things. I mean, I never come up with a virus, but then again, you never know. You may accidentally click on something that you didn't expect or didn't know. But yeah, it's good to have it.
Okay. No, very good. And for your business, obviously you're in the B2B space. So for you being in business, what has been successful for you in marketing your business to other businesses to obviously try and get their business? And what have you had any flops? I know it's totally switching gears real quick, but I'm just curious, like what has worked for you to be able to get more business? And have you tried anything for you being in that B2B market that's just gone downhill and it didn't work at all to get new clients?
Yes, it has. Honestly, what works for me is just networking with other people, talking, doing my own little social media, saying, this is what I do. People call me there. People who know me refer me. My flop has been spending a lot of money on marketing agencies. I find, and that's for me personally, I'm not knocking anybody or not saying you should or shouldn't do it. But for me personally, I find that I've spent a lot of money on marketing agencies and for them to run a Facebook ad. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay. It doesn't work. So I think it's a lot of money to be spent when you could save a lot of money by just getting yourself out there and talking to people and let people know what you do. I think that's more of an organic way, because even though you may have people call you from this Facebook ad that you put out, how many of those people are really the people that you're looking for?
Hey, that's good. And I always have to do a plug here because I know I had another guest say it. Trina didn't use our marketing agency just want to make sure people are listening going, oh man, one of Mitchell's clients, they hate him. No,
it wasn't Mitchell.
Use other ones. And hey, there's good ones out there. There's bad ones out there. And sometimes it isn't for everybody to have a marketing agency. They might be completely good on their own doing networking or word of mouth. There's some people that they need to hire their own in-house person or whatever. There really is a good fit. And plus us specifically, we don't do super good with B2B marketing anyway. It's just not our niche. We really do actually better with the two verticals we're doing really well in is roofing and schools, are two that we've done really well with helping them grow. And but I always had to put it in there. I was like, oh man, I got to make sure I put the plug in there. But that's the thing.
It wasn't
something
Mitchell.
out there. Yeah, good. Yours would be perfect. When you were talking, I was like, man, networking for sure for her and word of mouth that's obviously good for everybody, but I kind of thought of just going to chamber events. So something I think that would be really good would be BNI. I don't know if you've heard of BNI before. It's Business Networking International, and I mentioned this on one of the other episodes as well, just for business owners to get together with other business owners every week. And the whole goal is to pass referrals to each other. I was a part of it for years. I have a love-hate relationship with it. It does work. I made business from it, but the group I was in, and when I left, we had like 22, 24 people, all business owners inside of it. And all week long, they're meeting people and trying to pass you referrals. And that's exactly kind of what happened. And then inside BNI, what I really like, and this just kind of goes into what's really good in the world we live in for getting business, is they have power groups. So you'd have the trades. And so you had the roofer, the electrician, the general contractor, the pest control people, whatever. They were in the trades, and they would pass referrals. That group of 5 or 6, they'd pass more referrals than any other power group, because You might go for a general contracting job and go, oh, you need an electrician? I know an electrician. Oh, hey, your lawn's really bad. Here's a landscaper's number. Here's the pest control. Boom, you just like inside that group, they kept passing referrals. And in my power group, obviously I was the digital marketer. We had a printer, we had an IT guy. And so we passed more business between each other because whoever I met was going to be a potential referral for a printer and for all that. So I would look in your area. For you being in Texas, there's hundreds of BNIs in Texas.
And what does that stand for, BNI?
Business Networking International.
Okay.
And anybody who's listening, if you're in business, I don't get money for people joining BNI because there is a cost to join a BNI group. Every one of them's different. It ends up typically being maybe an average of $100 a month between paying the BNI fees and paying for room rental and breakfast. Sometimes they have food. Ours had a breakfast that came with it. And, but it worked. And it's something that for people who might not have $500 to $1,000 to spend on marketing, but they just need to be in front of a group of people and to talk about their business. I was like, oh man, join a BNI. It's an hour or two a week. You go and meet people and network with some of them. There was one in Miami because I just wanted to see how big some of these groups were. I had like 92 business owners in this group in Miami, which is a couple hours south of where I live. But I was like, 92? How in the heck do you even get to know that many people like in an intimate business way? So I know Texas has got to have some ginormous ones, but it's all about one per trade. So I forgot to mention that. So there's only one electrician that's allowed to join, only one general contractor allowed to join. So you're not trying to compete with 5 other people doing what you do. And yeah, so everybody tune in, try and find a BNI. It's not for everybody either. And some people they don't like the feel of it. It's very repetitive every week. Everybody gets 60 seconds to talk about their business every week in their commercial. And I don't know, some people might get bored of it. It's not the same, but hey, it works. That's my biggest thing is it does work. But I appreciate you sharing some of the wins and flops as well. Is there, before we kind of wrap things up, I know you listed your 4 things that business owners should do or take care of in their business. If there was anything additional, like 1 or even 3 like nuggets that you'd be like, hey, if people were to get done with this podcast, something I really want them to just take and remember as they leave from here, what would be that 1 or 2 or 3 nuggets that you want them to leave with today?
Most important thing, what I've seen is just be careful of your email. People will spam you. People will send emails that look legitimate, but they're not. So pay very careful attention. If you see something that looks like it comes from your bank, be sure to look at it. Go to that, hover over it to actually see if that is actually from the bank. A lot of times these hackers, they'll take something like an I and make it an L. And, we as just human beings, we're so used to seeing things that our eye just sees it and glaze over it. But then if you really take your time and look, you'll see, okay, that's not really a real address. So take time, look at your email. If someone is asking for money, and if you're a business and say you do business for a certain company, and then you get an email saying, okay, this is company A, and instead of sending your payment to the bank on file, send it now to this bank. Be very aware of that. Do not go ahead and switch anything. Pick up the phone. Don't email. Don't reply to that email. Pick up the phone and actually call the person that you have done business with and say, okay, I got this email. Is this from you? Because that's where many, many companies are getting held from ransomware. They're getting their money stolen. And once you do that transfer, 9 times out of 10, you can't get it back because these people are in some faraway land. And once you change your routing information or you transfer money to a bank, by the time you transfer it, they've pulled it out and gone somewhere else. So by the time you realize it, to call your bank and say, oops, it's gone. So just be very aware of that. Especially, like I said, if someone is saying, change payments or change banks, pick up the phone and call.
Okay. And obviously, everybody, Trina's the expert here, but one of the things I do to kind of go off of the email thing, where I'll get a suspicious email, but it looks so convincing. I will do what she said. I will take the @slaterstrategies.com or whatever, and it, yes, it'll look like it is. I'll copy and paste it and put it into a web browser and see if it actually goes to the actual company's website. Like pull up, because again, the I's and L's, they can intertwine just like she said. So I'll go, oh, that is their actual business that it goes to. So it makes me a little bit, because it means it's actually their email. But yeah, they're good.
Yes.
I mean, I'll tell you what, there's some very convincing ones that'll come through, and which is scary, because if I'm second guessing it, I know that there's a lot of other people that probably in the older generations that are obviously taken advantage of, because it's very, very convincing. So yes, like Trina said, please pay attention to your emails, everybody. Well, if somebody's listening, Trina, and they want to get in touch with you and have maybe a consulting service or use you, what's one of the best ways they can get in touch with you?
My website is TrinaL_Martin.com. There you can fill out a request to have me consult with you. I do a free discovery call, so we can jump on a call. My book is there. I have a podcast. Everything that you need to know is right there on that website.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And I feel like people can't afford not to do something with this, whether it is hiring somebody to help them or just kind of handling it a little bit on their own. I feel like this is something they can't afford not to do. Would you agree?
Totally agree. It's something, and it's, you don't have to go out and buy $1 million platform. You may say, you know what, I just need cloud-based services. I just need a secure messaging, whatever that is. Just take the first step and do it.
Perfect. Well, Trina, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast and giving some of your expertise to the listeners. And I hope that they will, if they're listening and they don't have any of this stuff in place, that they will either try and handle it on their own, or maybe they can't do that and they will reach out to you to get this set up. So thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm assuming after today's episode, you learned at least one thing that you can take back to your company to make it even better than it is today. And if you're stuck and going, oh my goodness, what software should I use? How should I adopt this new software? Hey, I want you to reach out to Trina Martin and use her services to help you and help your company get to the next level with those different technologies and softwares that are out there, because that's not what I do. We help companies grow and be more successful, but we don't help with all those different softwares that Trina does. That is her expertise. So I encourage you to use her for that. We'll be here next week with another awesome guest. So we'll see you next week on the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. We'll see you then.